I don't remember the pain from the surgery as much as I remember the coldness in his eyes that day. You think the worst moment of your life is waking up with tubes in your body, a throbbing hole where your kidney used to be. But no, the worst is sitting on the couch, 3 days out of the hospital, still smelling of antiseptic, stitches itching under your robe, when your husband, my husband, hands me divorce papers. No eye contact, no explanation, no warmth, just a manila envelope, dropped on the coffee table like it was a pizza delivery. I blinked. My hands still trembled from the medication, but I opened it anyway. Thick, official papers. Legal jargon I couldn't even process. At the bottom, his signature, already scribbled in that lazy, arrogant way of his. I looked up at him. My mouth opened. Nothing came out. He leaned against the door frame like he couldn't be bothered to step inside the room where I nearly died for him. His voice? Cold. Detached. Like we were strangers. It's better this way, Laura. I need space. Space? I stared at him. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or throw something. Instead, I whispered, I gave you a kidney, Mark. I gave you a fucking kidney. He shrugged. You did what you wanted to do. I never asked you to. That's when the world spun. Not from the anesthesia, not from the blood loss, but from the realization that the man I loved, no, the man I thought I loved, wasn't even capable of guilt. I couldn't breathe. I whispered, my voice cracking, was she worth it? His lip curled just slightly. The kind of smirk a man gives when he thinks he's already won, when he thinks you're too broken to fight back. Yes, he said, she is. That was the moment something inside me cracked. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a sob, it was something quieter, deeper, like the sound of ice breaking under your feet. You can't see the danger at first, but you know you're already sinking. I should have begged. I should have pleaded. But instead, I smiled. And that scared him more than any scream ever could. You don't notice the lies right away. That's how betrayal works. It creeps in like smoke under a door, suffocating you before you even smell it. Looking back, the signs were all there. The late-night work calls, the way he flinched when I touched him, the passwords he suddenly started locking behind his phone. But love? Love makes you blind, deaf, and stupid. I was all three. I spent months sitting by his side at the hospital, watching him waste away on dialysis. Every beep of the machine reminded me what was at stake. I told myself, this is what marriage means: sacrifice, partnership, loyalty. I fought the doctors when they hesitated to approve the transplant. I argued with my sister, who begged me to slow down, to think it through. She said, Laura, you don't owe him your body. But she was wrong. At least, that's what I thought. I signed the papers. I went under the knife. I let them take a part of me so he could live. And he did. But the man who came home from that hospital wasn't my husband. Or maybe he never was. The first week home, he was distant. I told myself it was the medication, the trauma, the fear. But the truth? He was already gone. He just hadn't had the balls to tell me yet. He started disappearing for hours. When I asked, he snapped, You're smothering me, Laura. Christ, can't I breathe? Breathe. The man I fought to save was now drowning me. It got worse. The calls from unknown numbers. The perfume I didn't wear lingering on his shirt. And still, I clung to him like a woman desperate to save a sinking ship, even as the water rose to my throat. And then, one night, I saw it. His phone, left unlocked for once. A text. Her name. Sweetheart. A dinner reservation. A hotel confirmation. I stared at that glowing screen in the dark kitchen, shaking. My legs gave out. I crumbled on the cold tile floor, the realization crashing over me like a tsunami. He wasn't just cheating, he was leaving. The kidney wasn't a gift to him anymore. It was a burden. A reminder that he owed me something he never intended to repay. When I confronted him, he didn't even bother to lie. "I can't do this anymore, Laura. You're weak. I'm tired of pretending." Weak. That word sliced deeper than the scalpel that took my kidney. I locked myself in the bedroom that night, curled up in bed, clutching the spot where they'd stitched me up. I replayed every memory, every sacrifice, every goddamn smile I forced when I should have screamed. And for the first time, I let myself feel the rage. Not just at him, at myself. For being blind, for letting him turn me into a doormat, for giving him everything and demanding nothing in return. The next morning, the papers were on the table, and just like that, I was nobody to him. He didn't even look back when he walked out the door. And the worst part? I wanted him to. I wanted him to hesitate, to feel something. But he didn't. And that was the final nail in the coffin. I laid in bed for days, maybe weeks. I don't remember. The days blurred into each other, each one heavier than the last. People say heartbreak feels like dying, but they're wrong. Dying would have been mercy. This question mark. This was worse. This was living in the ashes of a life I built for someone who never deserved it. Then, one night, lying in the dark, I heard a voice in my head. My own voice. Cold. Detached. "You're already dead to him. What's stopping you from becoming someone he should fear?" That thought was the first thing that made me smile in weeks. And just like that, the fall was over. Because something inside me woke up, something dangerous. It's funny how grief makes you invisible. People stop seeing you. You become the woman who got left, the poor thing who gave too much, the tragic cautionary tale. And for a while, I let them think that's who I was. I let the whispers float around town. Let the pity pour over me like cold coffee. They didn't know the woman they thought was broken was quietly sharpening her edges. I started with the small things Mark never noticed when we were together. Like how people look at you differently when you stop apologizing for existing. I cut my hair short, jagged. Nothing like the soft waves he always said made me look pleasant. I changed my wardrobe. Tossed out the pastel prison he liked so much. I wore red, black, colors that made people uncomfortable. But those were just the outer layers. Inside? That's where the real work started. While they thought I was curled up crying, I was researching, reading, planning. I learned everything I could about him, her, their new little life. Because they weren't exactly subtle. Photos on social media, their smug, sun-kissed smiles. His hand on her waist like he never held me. Her wearing jewelry that looked suspiciously like the ones I never got. They flaunted their victory, thinking I was too weak to do anything. But what they didn't know is that weakness can become a weapon if you know how to wield it. I started going to therapy, not the kind where you cry on a couch. The kind where you learn how to burn the old version of yourself to ash and rise up sharper, meaner, smarter. I started strength training. Boxing. I channeled every sleepless night, every humiliation into the punching bag until my knuckles bled. Because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about taking back everything he stole from me. I rewired my brain, retrained my body, reprogrammed the woman he left behind into someone he wouldn't even recognize. And when the rage bubbled up, threatening to drown me again, I reminded myself of one thing. He picked me because I was kind. Because I was generous. Because I was easy to manipulate. But he forgot one thing. The kindest people, when pushed far enough, become the most dangerous. I studied them like a predator studies prey. Their patterns, their weaknesses, the way they strutted through the world thinking they were untouchable. He didn't just betray me, he underestimated me. That was his real mistake. Because while he played house with his shiny new girlfriend, I was quietly collecting information, bank records, emails, every dirty little secret they thought they'd buried. I didn't scream, I didn't lash out, I waited. Because timing is everything in war. And make no mistake, this was war. The old Laura would have written him long letters, begging for closure. This Laura? She was writing something else entirely. A plan, precise, ruthless, bulletproof. One that would make sure when they fell, they'd fall hard, publicly and permanently. They wouldn't even see it coming. I smiled in the dark, tracing my finger along the scar on my side. "You took my kidney, Mark," I whispered to myself, "but I'm about to take everything else." That night, I didn't cry. I didn't sleep either. I planned. And I was just getting started. They say revenge is best served cold, but I preferred mine surgical. Calculated, clean, precise. I spent weeks building a new version of myself that nobody, especially Mark, could recognize. I changed everything, my posture, my voice, the way I looked at people, the small-town victim. She was gone. In her place was someone people noticed when she walked into a room, and more importantly, someone they didn't dare underestimate. But I didn't stop at appearances. I went after their world, quietly, systematically. I started with her, Jessica, the woman who thought she won. The woman who looked at me with smug eyes the day I caught them at the restaurant, pretending to be the power couple. Jessica had no idea I'd been digging into her past. Her carefully filtered social media life left little breadcrumbs, and I followed every single one. Turns out she had skeletons, debts, secrets, the kind of skeletons that could ruin the polished image she clung to. I found out about the fake degree, the botched loans, the silent settlements from her ex-job, the one she left quietly after some unspoken issues. I sent anonymous tips to her new employer. At first, it was subtle, a whisper, a suggestion to double-check her credentials. Within 2 weeks, she was under internal investigation. While she scrambled to save her career, I moved on to Mark. He always prided himself on his business, the image of the self-made man. But I knew the truth. His success? It wasn't built on brilliance. It was built on people like me. Quiet women who did the work in the shadows while he took the credit. He made his first real mistake when he underestimated how much I knew about the company's underbelly. I still had access to the files. The deals he thought I was too dumb to understand? I understood them better than he did. I gathered everything, all the shady contracts, the tax oversights, the shell companies. Then I sent it, anonymously, to the right authorities, the tax office, the press, his competitors. And I waited. The fallout was delicious. Mark's world started crumbling, but he didn't know where the cracks were coming from. Clients pulled out, contracts got frozen, the headlines started rolling in. He tried to spin it, tried to play the victim. But the thing about men like Mark, when the image cracks, they unravel fast. While his business spiraled, I tightened the noose. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted them both to feel what I felt. Powerless. So I went for their social circle. You'd be surprised how easy it is to plant rumors in a tight community. Whisper the right things at the right parties. Suggest Jessica had been sleeping with other men. Hint that Mark's company was a sinking ship. Soon, people distanced themselves from them like they were contagious. The woman who once laughed at me now found herself uninvited to charity events, ignored at yoga classes, whispered about at the grocery store. But the pièce de résistance? That took patience. I hired a private investigator, not to follow them, but to get into the details they thought they'd buried. The affairs, the trips, the hidden accounts. I compiled a dossier. Thick. Nasty. Undeniable. And I leaked it to the people who mattered most to them, their families. Jessica's parents, conservative and judgmental, received an anonymous package with photos, statements, proof of the debts she tried to hide. Mark's siblings, who already despised him, got a similar package, showing exactly how deep his fraud ran. The best part? I didn't have to say a word. Their own people turned on them. I sat back and watched as their perfect little world collapsed in on itself. And just when I thought it couldn't get any better, the invitations came. Jessica, desperate to salvage her image, was throwing a charity gala, an attempt to regain her status. Guess who got an invitation? I almost laughed when it landed in my mailbox. They didn't even recognize the name I used now. To them, I was just another wealthy donor. But to me, it was the perfect stage for the final act. I prepared for that night, like a surgeon preparing for the most important procedure of her life. I walked into that gala looking like everything they tried to be. Poised, elegant, powerful. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever given someone everything and watched them spit it back in your face, then you know exactly where this is going. Stick around, because the way I finish this, you won't see it coming. They didn't even see me at first. But when they did, oh, the look on their faces. Confusion, fear, recognition. I walked up to them, smiled. "Lovely event," I said sweetly, sipping my wine. Jessica's hand trembled around her glass. Mark's face drained of color. I leaned in, my voice soft but sharp enough to slice skin. "Don't worry. I'm not here for drama. I'm just here to watch." They tried to hold it together, plastering on fake smiles as I floated through the room, charming the people they once called friends. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. Their own downfall unfolded around them, fueled by their lies, their greed, their own rotting foundation. I just made sure everyone could see it now. As I left that night, heels clicking on the marble floor, I didn't feel rage anymore. I felt power. They finally knew what it was like to be powerless. And I was far from done. Because the moment I had been waiting for, that was still coming. The gala was only the beginning. By now, Mark and Jessica were drowning in the consequences of their own actions. But I wasn't satisfied with letting them suffer quietly. I wanted them to feel it publicly, with no escape. The perfect opportunity came sooner than I expected. Mark was desperate. His business on life support, his name smeared in the press, his allies abandoning him. I heard through the grapevine he was pitching a last-ditch project to salvage his company, a tech startup investor event. Big names, high stakes, and his entire career now balanced on that night. I smiled when I saw the promo flyer, because I had already made sure every single investor attending would receive a detailed packet. Anonymous, of course. Every financial misstep, every lawsuit, every shell game he played to cover up his bleeding accounts. But that wasn't the real show. The real show was the surprise guest. Me. Under a new name, with new partners, I had positioned myself into the very investor group he was trying to impress. I stood on that stage, introduced by people who never once glanced at the woman he divorced like garbage. And there he was in the crowd, looking up at me, eyes wide, jaw tight, sweat beading on his forehead. He recognized me now. I saw the moment the realization hit him. I smiled, calm, polished, untouchable. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the microphone, "in business, trust is everything, and nothing destroys trust faster than betrayal." I let that hang in the air, watching him squirm. The whispers started in the room, people glancing at their emails, at the packets I made sure hit their inboxes minutes before the event. Mark tried to speak up, tried to salvage what little pride he had left, but nobody listened. Because at that moment, his past was louder than his voice. Jessica, who stood at the back like a shadow, tried to slither out before the cameras turned to her, but it was too late. I had already tipped off the press. They were there, waiting, capturing every glorious second. Mark stood there, alone, drowning in a sea of silent, judgmental faces. His empire, crumbling in real time. He looked up at me like he didn't recognize the woman staring back. Because he didn't. He saw a ghost. The woman he thought he buried. But ghosts have a way of haunting you when you least expect it. I walked down from that stage, slow, deliberate steps straight toward him. When I stood in front of him, he opened his mouth. Maybe to beg, maybe to apologize. But I didn't let him. I leaned in, close enough for only him to hear. "Now you know what it feels like, Mark," I whispered, "to be powerless, to watch everything you built collapse while everyone watches." He blinked, his face pale, the once smug smirk replaced with pure, naked fear. He tried to reach for my arm, a pathetic, desperate gesture. I pulled away. "Don't touch me," I said softly, the same way he once told me I was suffocating him. His lips quivered. He wanted to say something clever. Some last shred of the man who once held all the cards. But there was nothing left. He wasn't the man who walked out of our house with his chest puffed, papers in hand, ready to erase me. He was broken, exposed, small. And I made sure everyone saw it. I turned without another word and walked away. I didn't need an audience to cheer for me. The silence as I left the room was enough. Because now, they all knew. And for the first time in his life, Mark understood what it felt like to be the one discarded, the one humiliated, the one they whispered about behind closed doors. But the best part? He still didn't know everything. I had one last card to play, and it would be the one that shattered him completely. Because the best part of revenge is saving the final blow for last. I could have stopped there. But revenge, real revenge, isn't about the fall. It's about making sure they know exactly why they're on the floor. And Mark still didn't know. He thought the business, the money, the reputation, that was the revenge. But those were just the appetizers. The real feast was personal. I waited a week, long enough for the dust to settle, for Mark to crawl into the shadows, licking his wounds, trying to figure out how it all fell apart. And then I sent him a letter. No email, no lawyer, no anonymous tip. A letter. Handwritten. On the same stationery we used to send out our wedding invitations. I knew he'd open it. Inside, no threats, no rage, just a simple note. "You never even knew, did you? You were never supposed to be my match. But I did it anyway. Because I wanted to watch you live with it. Your life, your success, your future. They're all running on a part of me. You will never escape me. Enjoy the kidney." That was the final truth he never saw coming. Because what I never told him, what I never told anyone, was that he wasn't even my best match. The doctors warned me, said it wasn't the ideal pairing. There were risks, rejections. But I forced it through. I made them run the tests again and again until I found a loophole. I lied, manipulated, pulled strings, made them think I was the only option. Because I needed him to owe me, forever. His body might be trying to reject it every day for the rest of his life, Or maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it would keep him alive for decades. But every time he looked in the mirror, every time he swallowed a pill, sat in a waiting room, or felt that familiar ache in his side, he'd think of me. That was the real revenge. Because money can be rebuilt, careers can be salvaged, but you can't remove a part of someone once it's inside you. He would never be free of me. And that was the punishment he couldn't run from. I never told anyone. It was my secret, my victory. I didn't need the world to know. Mark knew, and that was enough. I moved on, built a life, traveled, loved, laughed, while he sat in his crumbling world, haunted by the woman he thought he discarded. Sometimes I'd pass him in town, see him sitting alone in his car, staring at nothing. Thinner, paler, older than he should be. And I'd smile, not because I missed him, not because I wanted him back, but because I knew, deep down, every breath he took was a gift he never deserved. And it came from me. The same woman he called weak. The same woman he tried to erase. They asked me once, a friend who didn't know the full story, why I was always so calm when they mentioned his name. I just smiled, because I already won. And the best part of my revenge? I never had to lift another finger. Mark would spend the rest of his life being kept alive by the woman he left bleeding on a couch. Every heartbeat, every breath, every second of his existence, it belonged to me. Forever.